So you deserve a man who thinks that you are too important to lose. So if you really want to get into a great relationship, which obviously is what I'm suggesting that you do, you really need to believe it. You need to believe that you deserve to have what it is that you want. And so I'm going to be talking today about a concept that I call sacred, right? It's obviously not a new concept. I didn't come up with this concept, but I'm going to be applying it. How can you apply this idea of being sacred to your own life so that you can make sure that you get into a relationship where you have a guy who feels like you are special, unique, different, amazing, exactly what he's looking for in his life, and somebody that absolutely doesn't want to let you go. So, hi, my name is Matthew Coast, and welcome to Commitment Connection. And so let's talk a little bit about this idea of being sacred. So our society teaches us a lot about how we're really no longer special. We're no longer sacred. There's lots of us. We're everywhere. You have to, do all these things in order to be enough. There's commercials out there. We don't have a lot of I was actually talking to a friend of mine today, and we're talking about this idea of having values, right? Having values kind of integrated into the foundation of who you are, and how our society doesn't really teach us that for the most part anymore. And what's happening now is a lot of people are getting sucked in to all the commercials, all the marketing, all the media, and we kind of get into this space where we're like trying to we believe in whatever the commercials are telling us, which a lot of the times is you need to do more, you need to be more, you need to, do all these things. And don't get me wrong, I do believe that it's incredibly valuable to become the best version of yourself and to continually grow and develop yourself into the best human being that you absolutely can be. However, it's also important that you realize that you are already sacred, right? You are already somebody. When you meet a man, you can absolutely be a blessing to him in his life and create a great connection. And most men, at least men used to kind of come from this space back in the day where they looked at women as sacred. They looked at women as kind of this amazing, beautiful, interesting, different, kind of strange, a little bit crazy, maybe a little bit interesting, right? They don't really understand them, but there's somebody that they should almost worship, right? And treat well and appreciate and love and care for. And our society's kind of shifted into this world of the hookup culture where, people are just settling for random hookups with just about anybody, and we don't really appreciate each other as much anymore. We aren't really connecting with each other as much anymore. We don't really value each other as much anymore. And so you need to realize that you are sacred. In fact, you're a woman, a life giver, the holder of emotion and magic and grace and beauty. And my suggestion is that you own that so that you can make sure that you end up in a really great relationship where a guy actually believes that and thinks that about you as well. There's a concept that I've talked about before on here called the law of belief transference. And this law states that whoever believes something with more certainty than the other person will end up transferring that belief that they have to the other person. And so if you believe that you don't deserve a great relationship, you don't believe that you're really worthy of a great guy, and you end up meeting a great guy, no matter how much he really likes you and he thinks that you're great and he appreciates you and he values you, if you're coming from that space of not believing it yourself, you'll end up transferring that belief over to him so that he doesn't believe it as well. And then next thing you know, he's going to be pulling away. He's going to be going cold on you. He's going to be telling you things like he's not really sure. He's confused. He doesn't know what he wants, and all kinds of things like that. And that's absolutely what you don't want and what I want to make sure that you avoid. If you're here with us right now in the chat, make sure you say hi and tell us where in the world you're watching this from. It's cool to see women from all over the world watching these live streams. So let's talk about what this means, right? What does being sacred mean? So here are some things that I think that you should make sacred for yourself. One is make your attention sacred. Make access to you sacred. Make emotional intimacy with you sacred. Make access to your body sacred. So don't put photos on social media. Don't send naked photos to men. That's part of making your body sacred. Don't just sleep around with guys because you're sacred, right? Don't next one is make physical intimacy sacred, which is what I was just talking about. Don't sleep around. Don't sleep with a guy without him earning it first. And we'll talk a little bit here in a minute about what that means by him earning it. Make who you are sacred. So how do you do all of this? How do you create this kind of sacred thing? And one of the biggest concepts that you need to think about is this idea of making him work for it. So there's something that I call the investment principle. And the investment principle, what it states is that the more a man invests in you, the more that he invests in you from his time, energy, effort, emotions, and anything. A lot of times when I talk about investment, women will start talking about like money, right? Which is also a type of investment, but really what you want is emotional investment. You want time investment. You want him to sit around and think about you and contact you and talk to you and open himself up and be vulnerable around you. Because when he starts doing those things, when he starts investing in you, he starts feeling like you're too important to him in order to lose, right? There's something called the sunk cost fallacy out there, which actually comes from investing. And the sunk cost fallacy, what it states is that, the more somebody puts into something, the more they value something, right? And so you want him to value you really highly. That's what we're talking about in being sacred, right? Sacred is something that you really value. It's something that you put up here, right? It's something that's really important to you. And, there's lots of different things that people have that are sacred. Sometimes people make time sacred. Sometimes people make objects sacred. Sometimes people make people sacred. Sometimes people make areas that they go to and hang out in sacred. And so my suggestion is that you make yourself sacred. And so how do you do that? Well, there's kind of the one aspect, which is you making him work for it, which is what I'm talking about, which is what I was talking about before. Don't just give yourself away to a guy because you feel it for him. We get so many women who come to us and they're like, oh, I've been seeing this guy and I really felt it for him, but I didn't want to ruin anything by asking him the wrong questions because I know that guy. This is what I hear all the time. I know that guys are scared of talking about commitment, and I know that guys are scared of talking about feelings and what they're looking for and all of those things. And let me tell you, the only guys that are scared of talking about commitment are guys who are scared of how you're going to react when they tell you what they're actually looking for. And so most guys are actually pretty open about what they're looking for and what they want, especially a guy that's actually looking for a commitment and looking for a relationship and looking to get married or have a great, amazing relationship at some point in the future. And so don't get too freaked out about asking him questions like that. Don't be afraid of asking him what he's looking for, because those will indicate whether you should actually be with this guy or not. And so what I was talking about before was how I'm like running off on tangents here. What I was talking about before was how a lot of women come to us and they'll end up hooking up with a guy and they won't ask him those questions. And then next thing you know, they'll end up in a situation where they're in a friend with benefits situation because they never asked the guy what he was looking for. They never stopped to make sure that they're getting into a good situation where they're getting exclusivity, where he was actually looking for a commitment, where he's looking for something down the road. And so they end up in the situation where and by the way, if you don't ever talk to a guy about whether you're exclusive or not, you can just assume that you're not until you do. And so for a lot of these women end up in these friend with benefits situations, and then they're trying to go from that place where they've already put themselves down lower, right? Because most guys, if they hook up with you and they hook up with you fast, and you're not requiring these things to happen in order for that to occur, then they usually will slot you, many times they'll slot you into a different category. And there's actually been studies that have been done on this, where the studies have determined that only when somebody is trying to go from a friend with benefits casual situationship into a committed relationship, that only 1 in 7 to 1 in 9 times does it actually make it there. And so you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up from the very beginning to be in the kind of relationship that you want to be. If you just want a friend with benefits situation, don't be surprised when you end up catching feelings for him and then wanting something more, but he doesn't want something more with you. And that's the worst kind of situation that you can be in. If you are in that situation, there is a possibility for you. Like I said, I actually have a program on it. It's called the devotion switch. The devotion switch, and you can get it at commitmentconnection.com/devotion. So anyway, let's go back to these things. How do you make yourself sacred? You really have to believe that you're valuable enough to have the relationship that you want. And like I said, because of the belief of the law of belief transference, if you don't believe that, then he's not going to believe it either. And so you have to change the way that you think about yourself, change what you say to yourself. So a lot of women will think to themselves and feel and have certainty around this idea that they're not really good enough, that they're not really worth it, that men don't like them, that they're never going to find a man who wants to be with them, that men don't want commitment, that men only want to hook up, that they have to give in to the hookup culture because that's what men just want right now. And you need to change all of those beliefs, right? If you have some of those beliefs are going to stop you from actually getting into the kind of relationship that you want. And it's going to end up making you settle for something that's not worthy of who you are. And so you want to start believing things like, I'm lovable, I'm valuable, I'm beautiful, I'm a masterpiece, I'm the type of woman that men want to be with. Men want to chase me. Men want a commitment with me. Men are, going to value me and cherish me and love me, right? And not all men are going to do that. However, you need to make sure that you set yourself up for the best possible situation. And if they aren't doing that, then you need to communicate that 3 different things. And we're going to be talking about those 3 things here in just a minute. If you get what I'm talking about, say I get it in the chat. If you don't get what I'm talking about, feel like I'm rambling a little bit too much, let me know, or ask whatever questions that you have. And whatever you want to talk about, I'll talk about any situation that you're in, or if you just want to chat, or talk about something you talk about over coffee because you just love talking to Matt Coast, and I'm here and I'm ready to talk with you and you're in my chat. I'm mostly joking there. All right, so actively work to grow and become a better version of yourself. This is part of believing that you're sacred and creating a sacred space for yourself, right? You want to believe that you're worthy and that you're deserving and that you're enough. And you also want to develop and grow yourself and become a better version of yourself and learn how to better connect with men and get better at something. Confidence actually comes from competence. So the better that you can get at something, the more confident you'll be in that space. And so one of the ways that you do that with this is learning how to better communicate your value, right? When you learn how to communicate your value, you'll be a lot more confident when you actually do communicate your value because you've practiced it, you've thought about it, you've learned how to do it. And so you'll be a lot more confident in doing it. And so there's 3 different types of ways to communicate your value to a man. The first one is through standards. And standards are communicating things like, 1, your preferences, things that you like and things that you don't like. That's setting a standard. Another way to set standards is to talk about things that you think are attractive. So if you're talking to a guy and you're like, yeah, I really think it's attractive when guys, act like gentlemen and open doors for me and, pull out my chair and, make me feel protected and loved and cared for, or whatever it is that you're looking for a guy to do. Just communicating what your standard is, saying what you think is attractive. Or if he's doing it, for instance, let's say he opens a door for you and you say, wow, that was really attractive. I really like that. Right. And just communicating that you think that something that he's doing is attractive, and that's actually setting a standard. Right. And he's going to hear that. He's going to hear you say something like that to him, and then he's going to want to do it again and again and again and again, because he's thinking, okay, I'm winning with her. Right. Which is what men want to do. They want to make you happy and they want to win with you. And if he feels like he can do that with you, and you're leading him to doing things that make him win and that make you happy, then he's going to want to continue to do those things. He's going to feel like he's winning with you. He's going to want to go on more dates with you because he thinks he's having a great time. He's connecting with you. He likes you. The second way to communicate your value is to communicate your boundaries. And we've talked a lot about boundaries in other videos. For a real quick recap of it, the way that you communicate boundaries is, let's say that he's pushing your boundaries, which is something that guys do all the time, and they're going to do all the time because that's kind of one of their jobs, is to see where the boundaries lie with you. And so what he might end up doing is, let's say that he tries to do something with you that you aren't really ready for yet. For instance, instead of just outright rejecting him, which is what a lot of women do, and they're like, no, I'm not doing that, I'm not interested, which can a lot of times make a guy think that you're actually rejecting him, right? There's two types of rejections. One's a hard rejection, the other one's a soft rejection. A hard rejection is when you are like, no, I'm not interested, I don't want to do that. A soft rejection is like, not yet. You're interested, but not yet. Right. I'm not, it's kind of a thought process of communicating, like, if you play your cards right, maybe at some point I'll be interested in that. And so you want to lead him on. If you're using a boundary, what you do is you tell him what it is that you want, right? Like, I love, or tell him the things that you like about him or something like that, right? So it's either telling him what you want or telling things that you like about him. So you might say, I'd love to do that in the future. That's telling him what you want. If you're telling him things that you like about him, you might say, I really love hanging out and talking to you and communicating with you. And then you say your boundaries. So you say, maybe, so let's say you're doing it from the beginning. So you say, maybe I'd like to do that. That sounds like it would be really fun sometime in the future. However, I'm not quite ready for that right now. I'd rather we get to know each other a little bit better first. Does that sound all right? And so the third part of the boundary is asking a question and making sure that he agrees to it, because then if he agrees to it, then he's caught into doing that, right? He's set up in a position where he needs to do that. And if he doesn't do that, then he actually, then that he's intentionally breaking your boundaries. And you can go on to number 3, which is the third way of communicating your boundaries, which is walking away. And so when you walk away, it's not necessarily forever, right? You can walk away from a situation, but still be interested if he's willing to put in the energy and the effort in order to win you back. But if he's not willing to put in the energy and the effort in order to win you back, then you might be in a space where you're like, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. And so you walk away. So let's say that he does something, right, that you really don't like. And so walking away is usually for a situation that you really don't like. So let's say that, he flirts with another girl, right? You guys are out and he flirts with another girl, or he says something, or he does something that's a little bit over the line, right? Just a little bit over the line. I mean, if it's like really intentional, like he walks away from you and starts flirting with a girl on the other side of the room, that might be a problem. But if a waitress comes over and he just says, something cute and flirty or whatever, and you're not really comfortable with that, you could, end up walking away from that situation, or you could set a boundary depending on how bad it is, right? And if you walk away, what you want to do is wait until he communicates with you, he contacts you, and have some kind of procedure for what you want in order for him to re-enter your life, which might be an apology. It might be him being like, hey, I'm not going to do that again, and being really serious with you. It might be that, it's too much and you're not willing to accept anything like that back into your life. Okay, and then another way of making yourself sacred is by positioning yourself in value. And I talk a lot about this in the Forever Woman program. You can check it out at theforeverwomanformula.com. And so one of the ways that you do this is to get into abundance. It's something that I call abundance, the abundance principle, which basically what it is what abundance is having options, right? Having options and connections so that you're not coming from a space of being needy and clingy and desperate. And so what happens with a lot of the women who come to us initially is that they will be in a space where they're just dating one guy, right? And the guy's not even that serious about her, but she's like totally already like, okay, I'm just dating this one guy. And some women do this on the first contact, right? So if you just start talking to each other or you just go on one date, they're like, okay, this is the only guy that I'm going to date. And if I date anybody else, it feels like I'm cheating. Well, my suggestion is that you date multiple people at a time. Don't sleep with any of them. Just don't date multiple people at a time so that you're not coming from a space of, I need it to work out with this one woman or this one guy or else, right? If you're coming from the space of it has to work with this one guy, then you're going to be a lot more attached and invested in it working with this one guy. And if he does something that maybe normally would be against your boundaries or against what you actually want, you might walk away. But since this is the only guy, you're like, well, I'm going to have to try to manipulate and force and cajole and try to, push it to work with him, which is a really bad situation to be in. And instead, you want him to be trying to convince you that you are the right woman for him and that you should date him instead of any other guy. And the best way to do that is by putting yourself into a world of abundance. Talk to the women in our community about this. Lots of women have done this after I've suggested it to them, and it's completely changed their lives. It's completely changed their dating, because all of a sudden it's not this one guy. It's which one of these guys is going to step up and start pursuing me and start trying to create the relationship that I want to have with them. And so what you do is you shine the light, right? You shine the light on the type of relationship that you want to have, and then you let him lead you to the promised land, right? You let him lead you to creating that relationship that you want. So that's getting into abundance. The second part of positioning yourself in value is making sure that you take advantage of everything that you possibly can. There was a woman on our last live stream who was talking about how there's more men in the world than there are women. And so it's harder for women because there's more men. Well, there are billions of people on this planet, let me tell you. And there are lots of places that you can go where there are more men than there are women, and men tend to try to do things more. They're trying to step up their game more in order to be with the women, right? And that are around that area. And so my suggestion to you is whatever you need to do to put yourself in the best position possible. So if that's, depending on how serious you are about this, right? If that means that you are in a rural town and you, in order to have abundance and be around guys that don't all know each other, right? You might have to go to a bigger town in order to start dating there, or, doing something where you're putting yourself into a place where men tend to value women more, right? So some cities, right? Like, especially the cities where there are more men than there are women, places like Denver, places like San Diego, we were talking about with one of my friends earlier. I'm sure there's a lot of other places. Just look up the places where there is a lot of competition for women, and you can, go to those kinds of places if you want to. Obviously, it can take a lot if you work somewhere and you can't up and move or whatever, or whatever. But it's not about this one thing, right? It's about doing it as much as you can. If You can't meet a whole bunch of guys because of whatever situation you're in, in person. You can also do online dating. I know a lot of women. I had a client not too long ago who was like totally against online dating. She's like, I'm not going to date online. And, I will never do that. It's horrible. Online dating sucks. And, and there are a lot of challenges with online dating for both men and for women. However, it can quickly put you into a place of abundance, and you can quickly start meeting and getting connected with other guys and start feeling like you're less and less attached to making things happen with one guy if you build that abundance with online dating or whatever, right? And so you just want to figure out what are the best ways to position myself so that I can have the highest advantage in my dating life. And just put yourself into that situation, assuming that you're single and not in a relationship already. So the next one is stop judging yourself. And so what you want to do is start learning to fully accept yourself. So this is another piece of being sacred and believing that you're sacred is stop judging yourself. Learn to fully accept yourself, especially the dark parts. So the parts that you're ashamed of, the parts that you're scared of, the parts that you think are gross or nasty or the worst parts of yourself, accept those. And there's also another side, which is kind of the light side, right? Learning to love the light side of yourself, the parts where, and you might say to yourself, well, why wouldn't I love the light parts of myself, the best parts of myself, the most excellent parts of myself? Well, a lot of people kind of deny those things. I've been going to a lot of Tony Robbins events over the last 8 months or so. And one of the things that I noticed that people do at those events is they will start talking to Tony and they will say things like, Tony, you did this. You are the one that created all these changes for me in my life, right? And to a certain extent, yeah, he gave them information and he gave them tools and resources to help them do it, but they did it, right? You did it, right? You have those amazing parts of yourself. And the way that you find out which amazing parts of yourself that you're not fully accepting and fully embracing is to look around you and look at people that you really admire and see what qualities they have and see which qualities they have that you admire. And then take those qualities on and say, how do I have those qualities as well? And am I not really fully embracing those qualities? I'm going to be putting a program together about how to really love yourself and find those parts and accept those parts at some point here, hopefully in the near future. So just watch out for that. And so the next part of really believing that you're sacred and thinking that you're sacred is changing the questions that you ask yourself. So the way, whatever you ask yourself, whatever questions you ask yourself, you will start focusing on that thing, right? And whatever you focus on, you start to feel, and whatever you feel, you end up receiving. And so if you change your questions, you can change how you experience your life and how much you love your life and how much you enjoy your life and what you experience in your life. And so here are some questions that you might want to ask yourself. And the main question here is what if? And so ask yourself, what if I am enough? What if I am deserving? What if I am blessed? What if I am exactly what a great man is looking for? What if I am whole? What if I am beautiful? What if I am worthy? What if I am in control? What if I have the power? What if I am on the right path? What if I am desirable? What if I am worth more? And so make a study of these questions if you want to. I'll throw these questions in the description here later. And, ask yourself at least one of those questions every day and just repeat it over and over again. And just, think about it. Think about what if you are deserving? What if you're enough? What if you're blessed? What if you're exactly what a great man is looking for? And sometimes when I talk about this idea of being enough, women will talk about, well, I'm not enough for this one guy, right? And we're talking about switching your mindset here from I'm trying to make everything work with this one guy to I am sacred, I am enough. And if this guy doesn't see that, then he's putting himself out of the competition for who is going to end up winning me in the end. And so you want to make sure that you're thinking about it and changing your mindset and not making it about a guy. Instead, making it about the relationship. What if you are enough for that relationship that you want to get in? And if you're enough, then what does that mean? What does that mean for you? And what could that mean for you? What if you're enough? What if you're deserving? What if you really do have the power? What if you really do have more control than you really think that you do? What if you're worth more than what you've been settling for up until this point in your life, with your relationships, with the men that you've been dating, with everything that you've been doing? What if you're worth more? So that's it for this video. If I'm going to do question and answer here, so if you have any questions, I'm going to answer them here. But I'm just going to do a real quick recap. So we're talking about being sacred, making sure that your attention is sacred, your access is sacred, your time is sacred, your emotional intimacy is sacred, access to your body is sacred, physical intimacy is sacred, who you are is sacred. And so make him work for it. Believe that you're valuable enough to have the relationship you want. Change what you say to yourself. Actively work to grow and become a better version of yourself. Position yourself in value. Stop judging yourself and change the way that you talk to yourself, what questions you ask yourself on a daily basis, and start focusing on the answers to questions of what if. What if I'm deserving? What if I'm blessed? What if I have grace running through me? What if I have the power? What if I am in control? What if I am worth more than what I've been settling for right now in my life? All right, so let's see what kind of questions everybody has here. So hi, Texas, New York. So Amanda says, hello, Matthew. Thank you for all your hard and compassionate work. Well, you are absolutely welcome, and I'm glad that this has been helping you. So I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you being allowing me to be a part of your journey to getting into the relationship that you want to be in. So I'm going to totally butcher this name, but Floravi Floravi says, thanks for all the inspiring words, Matthew. You're absolutely welcome. I'm glad that they inspire you. So Katie says, why do guys block you from him? For no reason. 1 minute he's nice, and the next minute you see he blocked you. Seriously, don't get guys. Well, there is actually a reason, Katie. There's a reason why he blocked you. And so you have to accept that there's a reason that he blocked you, because you can't always get, closure with every situation. And not every situation really deserves closure. And not every guy deserves closure. And if he blocked you, that means that there's a reason why he felt like there's something that there's not right there. It could be that, it's something that you communicated with him, or something that he saw on your profile that he didn't like, or it could be that, there's something going on with him that he's not really, ready for what it is that you want, or he's not willing to step up to the plate to give you what it is that you want, or he might feel like he's not really in the type of person, or, in the right space to be in the type of relationship. I mean, there's a ton of different reasons why men might do this. And it all boils down to he's cutting himself off from being the right guy for you, and that there's somebody else who's going to treat you better and connect with you better, who's not going to block you, who's going to want to communicate with you, who's going to want to be with you, who's going to think that you're a blessing to him in his life, who's going to think that you're sacred, who's going to think that you're wonderful, who's going to want to love you and care for you and hold you and tell you that you're amazing and awesome, and that he's never going to want to let you go, and that, he doesn't want to lose you. And that's the kind of guy that you should be waiting for and getting into a relationship with, not a guy who's blocking you. And absolutely, it can be frustrating. It can be absolutely frustrating. People are blocking each other and ghosting on each other all the time these days, even if they've been seeing each other for a while. Sometimes people will just disappear. Sometimes women will just disappear. Sometimes guys will just disappear. And there could be a whole bunch of different reasons for it. And the most important reason is that he is disqualifying himself from being the right guy for you. So Fiore says hot message and topic. Well, I'm glad that you think that this is a hot message and topic. So Solvig says, I need spaceman. I don't know what spaceman means, but cool. Go for it. Go for spaceman. She says, you're awesome, Matthew. Greetings from Iceland. Well, greetings, Solvig. Yeah, so let's see what else people have. Aleuma Igwe says, wonderful. I love this. Well, I'm glad you love this. Sorry for butchering your name. So Natalie says, hi from Australia. Loving your advice. Well, I'm glad you're loving my advice. Thank you so much. So To Love Thank You says, I'm not too important for David to lose. And so let's go back to what we were just talking about, To Love Thank You, and talking about changing it from this man to the relationship, right? And making sure that you're setting yourself up and believing that you're sacred and believing that you can have what it is that you want, believing that men think that you're valuable, believing that men will give you the kind of relationship that you want to get into, and making sure that you believe all these things, right? You have to believe all these things, and you have to switch it and stop making it about this one guy, which I don't know what your situation was with David. To Love Thank You. Well, that's a very interesting name. But yeah, I mean, some guys aren't going to see your value. Some guys aren't going to cherish you. Some guys aren't going to think that you're sacred. And if a guy feels that way, that's fine, because we have three ways. Remember, we have three ways of communicating your value. One is setting your standards. Number two is setting your boundaries. And number three is walking away. What isn't doing it is it's not convincing him, it's not manipulating him, it's not forcing him, it's not, trying to get this guy to do the things that you want him to do. And instead it's setting standards, it's setting boundaries, and then if those don't work or it's a really bad situation, you walk away. That is value. That's how you let people know your value. All those other things will actually lower your value in a man's eyes. It won't lower your value as a human being, but it will lower the way that he sees you and his value to you, because because you're not communicating that you actually believe that you're valuable. So Alia says, right, Matt, the concept of that secret Islam concept for the woman, but the problem is when the man not have the same concept, right? And what was I just talking about, Alia? The man doesn't have the same concept. We're not talking about trying to make this man do what you want him to do, right? You're not trying to do that. And you might be in a situation where you're married, or you're, in some kind of other kind of, you've been in a relationship for 8 years or 12 years or whatever, right? And a guy doesn't see your value. And yeah, maybe you shouldn't have gotten with that guy in the first place or whatever. Well, that's in the past. So how do we communicate our value now? There's three main ways. Number one is setting your standards, like we talked about. Number two is setting your boundaries. And number three is walking away when he disrespects your boundaries, your standards, or does something that's really, really bad and that, puts you into a weird situation. And so that's how you communicate. And he might still not recognize your value, and he may not still, believe that you're valuable, and that's okay. Like I said, not every guy is going to believe that you're valuable, but not every guy is for you either. And you shouldn't stay in a situation with a guy who doesn't believe that you're valuable and doesn't think that you're sacred. And so she continues on and says, it only can reach when both woman and man have covered and say some concept of their body secret, and all thing needed in relationship is only for their spouse. Yeah, I mean, the whole covered thing is obviously an Islamic concept. We don't, to a certain extent, they had that in Christianity in America. But we're kind of in a world now where it's, it's all kinds of different, right? There's all kinds of different. And if you want to, and actually, if you think about that idea, right? Think about this idea of covering, right? Like covering up parts of your body. And I know we kind of live in this world today where, women are kind of like, a lot of women are just showing up, and it's like they don't have much on at all, right? Like if you go down the street here, I'm in America, right? I'm in Washington, D.C. at the moment. And if you go down the street here, you can see women who have their booty hanging out of their pants, right? And they've got things hanging out all over the place, right? And you're looking at them, and you're seeing it, and when you look at that, to a certain extent you can admire it, and you can be like, wow, that's really beautiful and that's really hot, and to another extent it's like, is she's just giving everybody access to seeing her body and getting access to all these things. And does that create curiosity? Does that create mystery? Does that make him feel like you really believe that those parts of you are sacred? And I don't know, you can question that, and you can think about that. If a guy was walking around naked in town and he's got his junk, swinging around, do you think that he believes that those parts of his body are sacred? I don't know. Let's flip the script. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. All right. Sadie says, he seems to be fearful, avoiding. His words don't match his actions, in that his actions are committed and loving, but his words are, I don't love you. How do you deal with that? Well, Sadie, let me give you a very important principle that you need to remember in every single one of these situations, like the one that you're in. Here it is. When a man's words and actions do not align, like in this situation, he tells you that he shows you that he's committed and that he's loving, but he's telling you that he doesn't love you or that he doesn't want to commit to you. Here's what you do every single time, right? If his words and actions are different, you want to believe the one that's worse, right? You want to believe the one that you don't want to believe. And in this case, the one that's worse is that he doesn't love you. And so you want to believe that, right? Even if his actions show that he does. And let's talk a little bit about why this is. Because men and women and everybody have needs. We all have needs, right? We have desires. We want to feel connected. We want to feel loved. We want to feel like we're, with somebody. We want to touch each other. We want all these different things. Well, what he's getting right now with you is what it sounds like, is he's getting those needs met without needing to be vulnerable and open himself up and admit that maybe he has these kinds of feelings for you. And a lot of guys, they'll continue to do that for a very, very long time. And if his desire to, not open himself up, not allow himself to commit, not fall in love with you, not do all those things is much, much greater than, his desire to stay in a relationship with you and love you and all that kind of stuff, then when you start pulling yourself away from the situation, which is what I suggest that you do, and that you do very quickly, then what will end up happening is nothing will ever make him, say that he loves you, really admit that he loves you, commit to you, get married to you, and do all these things that maybe are things that you actually want. And so you have to remember that in those situations, which is, why we talk about doing it initially and having these conversations initially and talking about these things initially and having guys invest initially and making sure that you're getting into good situations initially. Because if he's in that situation, he may or may not, right? If you're like, you know what? That's cool. You don't love me. You're not willing to actually commit to me, verbally, and you're not going to show me to your friends. You're not going to take me to see your family. You're not going to put a ring on my finger. Whatever those things are that are things that you want. If he's not willing to do those things, that's great. You need to pull yourself out of that situation. You can communicate with him and just let him know and be like, look, that's fine. That's fine. I really wanted more with you. However, if you're not willing to do those things, you're not interested in those things, that's fine. Let me know if at some point you are interested in those things. And if I'm still single, maybe we can talk about it. And then walk away from the situation and go find a guy who is going to love you and is going to cherish you and is going to commit to you and is going to tell you that he loves you and have you meet his family and treat you like the queen that you deserve to be treated as, treat you like the goddess that you deserve to be treated as, treat you as if you're sacred. And if he decides that he wants to step up after that point, that's great. And if he decides that he doesn't, that's fine too. But you have to make sure that you get out of a bad situation where you're not being treated the way that you want to be treated. All right, Shelby says, hi from Kansas City. I get it. Thank you, Matthew. Love all the advice. Stay well and looking fantastic. Well, I appreciate all of what you just said there. So you're welcome for the advice. Thank you. I'm definitely staying well, and I appreciate that you think I look fantastic. All right, Jennifer says, I love this. This is how I was raised, and men do appreciate a woman who has self-respect. You preach it, Jennifer. You preach it. That's what I'm talking about here. That's what I'm talking about. Air high fives all around. I love what you're saying right now. And she says, it's a rare thing these days. Make him proud to be with you. Exactly. Thank you. Jennifer gets it. You get it, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being here. You're awesome. Let's see what else people have to say here. So, Coaching Comeback says it's a throwaway culture. That's true. It is a throwaway culture. It's the hookup culture. Doop de doop de doop de doo. Let's see. Two Wins says, Matt, I totally get this, and I've noticed it's true in theory and practice. Awesome. That's what I like to hear. That is what I like to hear. That is what I like to hear. Cynthia says, I get it. We are the prize. That's right. You are the prize that he is trying to win over. That's what you want. That's what you want. Coaching Comeback says, strange if actions show love, but words show rejection. It's not strange. I mean, it might seem strange in the moment, like they're loving on you and they're like, no, I don't love you. You know what I mean? They're all like, oh, you're just so amazing there, Coaching Comeback. I just love hanging out with you. I just want to spend more time with you and have a great time. And then you're like, oh, this is so wonderful and sweet. I love you. And he's like, well, I don't love you. And I don't want a commitment with you, right? And you're like, whoa, wait a second. What are you doing loving all over me then, right? And you have to raise your standard of what you believe that you deserve in those situations, right? Always believe the worst of the two. If it's words or actions, some people say actions speak louder than words. Many times they do. And words also speak out louder than actions a lot of times as well. And so you have to look at whatever the worst one is, right? It's not always actions. Believe actions, don't believe words. Because if you believe actions and you don't believe the words and he's all loving all over you, you can get into a situation. There are women that have been in our community who were in situations like this for years. One was in a situation like this for over a decade, where she believed that things were moving towards a real relationship, getting married, having kids, family, all that kind of stuff, right? And the guy had been telling her the whole time, like, I don't see this going anywhere more than some kind of fling thing, right? And she didn't believe him. She's like, no, I've met his family. I've met his friends. He loves on me. He says I'm just a friend of his when we're out with his friends, but, I don't believe that, he treats me so well. Right. And she's been doing this for so long that she's in denial about the entire thing. And so you can't get in denial about this, right? You can't make it so that you don't believe what he is saying to you. if his actions are worse than, if his words are worse than his actions. You have to believe what he's saying because he's communicating with you what's going on with him. And you want to believe the other one, right? Just like you want to believe that he loves you and he's going to commit to you, even though his actions aren't showing it. And it's the same thing in both situations, but we've been taught so much and trained so much to believe the actions that a lot of times we'll miss out on what somebody's actually telling us with their words. And so you have to listen to both of them and figure out which one's worse and then believe whatever that one is. So Edith says, hi, Matthew, you're simply great. Thank you for all the beautiful advices. God bless. You are absolutely welcome, Edith. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. So Margaret says, I asked he right from the start, what was he looking for in a relationship? And he said right from the start that he is looking for a long-term relationship, but our relationship has only been casual. Right. And she says, and it's been like this for many years now. Well, let me tell you something, Margaret. Let me tell you something very, very important that you absolutely need to listen to. So they've done research studies on this. I love research. I read research all the time. It's absolutely fascinating to me. And what they found is that somewhere between the 6 and 8 month mark, most men who are dating a woman, like 95% of all men who are dating women around the 6 to 8 month mark, and by the year mark, 100%, know what kind of a relationship they want with a woman. And so if he's past that 6 to 8 month mark, he knows what he really thinks about you and what he really wants with you. And so if he's not trying to propose, if he's not moving things forward, if he's not telling you he loves you, if he's not being committed to you, then he already has you slotted in his mind, especially if it's been a couple years, that you're not long-term committed relationship material. If a guy says that he's looking for long-term relationship material, don't assume that he wants that with you. Just assume that that's something that he's looking for and that you might be one of the prospects. But definitely don't let him say that to you for years, right? You need to walk away from that situation and say what I told you, right? Tell him, look, that's fine. If you want something long-term, I'm looking for this, right? Make sure you're both getting your needs met. One of the problems that a lot of women have is they want to get married, right? They want a ring on their finger. They want the ceremony. They want to feel like, two people have become one, or, whatever metaphor you want to put around marriage. Some people don't value marriage anymore, and that's fine too, whatever you believe. And if you want marriage, don't move in with a guy. I call this the ring rule. Do not move in with a guy if you want marriage at some point in the future, because what's going to happen is he's going to be getting all of his needs met by you living with him. And you're not going to be getting your needs met because you want something more than just living with a guy. And so what's going to end up happening is you're going to be in a situation where at some point, you're going to have to pull out all stops, pull out the ultimatum and be like, look, this is what I want. I want a real relationship. And if you're not willing to give it to me, I'm going to have to move out, right? And so you don't want to move in to begin with if you want a marriage. And you have to make sure that if you're going to move in together, that he's going to be fulfilling all of your needs, just like you're going to be fulfilling all of his needs. And so make sure that you're getting yourself into the best possible situation. So French sent me a super sticker. I appreciate you, French. I appreciate you and those super stickers. Kathy says, hello, how are you doing? I am absolutely fantastic. Thank you for asking. I'm doing great today. She says, thank you for this video. It's so helpful and truly appreciated. Well, I'm glad that you appreciate it. I'm glad that it's helpful to you. And thank you so much for being here with me. Yasmin says, awesome advice. Thank you. Marie says, hello, that is interesting. Have good continuations. Okay, good continuations. So BV says, what if we have too many options and can no longer narrow in one guy? Feels hard to be monogamous when suddenly you date so many people and more than one meets your needs. Well, here's the question you want to ask yourself, BV. Ask yourself, if it was one or the other, which one would it be? That's what you want to do. You just want to compare which ones that you want to pick. Obviously, BV is in the right situation right here. She's in abundance. All these guys are apparently great for her because she's obviously listening to the abundance idea. And so now she's in this situation where she has to pick, which can be, another challenge. And what you want to do is just figure out which one is, best for you, right? Which one is best for you. And then you have to let go of the rest. I mean, it can be very difficult. You're right. Absolutely. Especially if you're dating guys and you think they're awesome, and they're all awesome. You're like, what do I do now? You just have to compare and figure out what works best for you. What do you like the most, and allow that person to move forward with you. Marge says, you're absolutely right. Letting him go is the best decision I've done. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to. Sometimes you absolutely have to. So, one of the biggest challenges that we have in this day and age is that we live in the culture of the hookup, right? The hookup culture, where men and women are getting into superficial, casual situationships instead of real live connections. And everybody, men and women, are starving for real connections right now. And you need to make sure that you're putting yourself into the best possible situation that you can so that you get into the type of relationship that you absolutely want to have. And there's a 3-part formula for doing this. First is you need to believe in your own value. You need to believe it. You need to believe that you're worth it, that you deserve it, and that this is something that a man will give to you. Second, you need to position yourself in value. You need to create abundance. You need to position yourself so that men are competing for your time, attention, and your commitment. You need to flip the script. Stop making it about trying to convince them. Stop making it about manipulating them. Stop making it about trying to get him to do what it is that you want him to do. And instead, make it about the relationship that you want and getting in so that they start competing to try to convince you to get married to them, trying to convince you to be with them, trying to compete for your time and attention and your love. And that's what you want to be. That's what positioning yourself in value really is about. And the third part is communicating your value. And we talked about the 3 ways today, which is setting standards, communicating different boundaries that you have, and walking away from the situation. And so if you're interested in learning more about how to do this, if you're in a situation that's really challenging for you, my suggestion is that you pick up a copy of the Forever Woman Formula. You can get it, free access to it. And what you do is you go to theforeverwomanformula.com and you watch the video there, and then you can get free access at the end of the video. Thank you so much for everybody that's been with me today. I absolutely adore all of you. I appreciate you allowing me to be a part of your journey into getting into the relationship that you've always wanted to have. You are the best, absolute best part of our community. We have some of the most beautiful, amazing, just gorgeous, intelligent, just awesome, powerful women in the world as a part of our community. So thank you so much for being here with me today. I gotta get going. There's a pile of little kittens that I need to go and lay in and have them roll over my face and pet them all over because I love kittens. So I gotta get going. So thank you so much for being here with me today, and I will speak with you again soon. And always remember, you are worth it.